So I think this would be a good starting point. So as I was going through your content, one of the things that stood out for me was like this concept that I think you called the three pillars of freedom. So like oneness, detachment, and surrender. And I mean, I think that the video we were talking about that, yeah, in the video that you were talking about that, you were like using it to explain something about like breakups, so like more romantic and partner relationships. But I guess that this applies also like for many relationships in general, and for like how we move with friends, family. And so I mean, these are three very specific and concrete concepts that, I mean, of course, you can learn them through books, but I guess you also like learn them deeply through experience. So
Yeah.
I want you to get into like how how your experience with these three has been, and how like that idea has evolved through your journey.
It's such a good question. Okay, I love how it starts. So I've always had this sense of curiosity, deep thinking, interest in human nature ever since I was a teenager. Maybe I think 14 years old is when I started like, being interested in psychology and like I started reading, watching documentaries, watching YouTube videos about that stuff, and I was fascinated by the mind. And as I was growing up and growing through my journey, I'll give some context because this lesson, like in order for me to come to the moment where I'm like oneness, detachment, surrender, it's a pretty big backup story. So I'll give a
Okay.
little of
Sure.
context. So my passion for human nature was also matched with my passion for being an inspiration, being someone who's in front of a public. And as a teenager, the way I interpreted that was I'm gonna be famous. I'm gonna be famous one day. So it's like, okay, how can I be famous? Well, I'm not gonna be a professional athlete because I don't have a specific talent in sports. I'm not gonna be a singer. I can't sing. But you know what? Maybe I'll be an actor. So, acting has a part where it's emotions, and you get to like create a story, and it's beautiful. There's a beautiful part of it. So, late teenage years, I really got obsessed with acting. And I got into the industry, and eventually I even got some contracts. It was pretty good. But what I realized is it was a very, at that moment, I just saw it as a superficial industry. It was very like, it was very on the surface level. It didn't match with my desire for the depth of human nature. And but now looking back, what I can say is it's an industry where the ego is very strong. So what happened is, as I was in that industry and I started also creating content online, that was that's so ironic. I created thirst traps, literally for women, like videos where I would be shirtless, dancing around, just wanting to seduce women. That was my content. So I was an actor at the same time I was doing this, and it was just pumping my ego up, pumping ego, 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 until I got into a relationship, my first ever relationship. And a month in, and that's when it's gonna get raw and honest, like you want it. A month into the relationship, I cheated on her online. I've never cheated in physical, like in person, but online. So I personally, some people might not consider this even as cheating. I do. So, brother, when I did that, it was like my ego was pumping up, pumping up, pumping up, pumping up. And then when I did that, it was just like a huge crash, identity crisis. Who am I? Who am I? Because I was brought up as you're gonna be the perfect husband one day, Danny. You're beautiful, intelligent, and all that. Like my parents really, really hyped me up, and they set these very high standards, which I'm grateful for. It's beautiful. But when I did that, it just crashed my whole ego, my perception of myself, and it brought me down a very dark path. Like that's my darkest path where for about a year and a half, I was just like so lost, so lost. And you know, all of these questions like what is even reality? Who even am I? What is even, and I couldn't find a satisfying answer. I got into philosophy. So I started getting into philosophy, and there was some interesting concepts, but I was always still in my head. I was still in the conceptual world, and when you're in the thinking mind, like it's never-ending loop. It's just you can't seem to grasp the answer. And it's not until, wait,
Sure.
until I discovered this right here that I got free. Freedom is the best word I could use. It freed me from believing that I am my mind. And from it literally unlocked a whole new dimension in my life, which is where oneness comes in, surrender comes in, detachment comes in. I kind of separate life into, like, you can take two paths. You can take the path of achievement, thinking, like logic, rational. And then you have the other path, which is going with the flow, surrendering, being at one, detachment. And the first part of my life, I was very like achievement. Then I went through a phase, oneness, detachment, surrender, where I was on the other side. And now what's happening in my life is I'm integrating both sides. So you can see one as the masculine energy, the feminine energy. And I believe, for me personally, the most optimal way to live is to integrate both and develop both sides. And it seems to me that men, especially, not everybody, but mostly, are having difficulty with oneness, detachment, and surrender, which is where the video you watched, which is for the breakup. The reason I posted that video, I went through a pretty difficult breakup. Not the first one, like a few years later, I met another woman. We were together for 2 years. And when we broke up, like, I read The Power of Now while I was with her. And in my head, I was like, I even initiated the breakup at first. Like, I initiated the conversation. I was like, I'll be fine. I'm a spiritual guy. I'll be able to, just be present, and I'll forget about her in a few weeks, and it will be good. And then I got completely fucked. I got destroyed. My ego got violated. And it got me reflecting how I've noticed that women tend to move on easier on average than men, or we can say feminine energy moves on easier than masculine energy, because feminine energy surrenders and lets go of control, while masculine energy is trying to control things. But in a breakup, there's another human being. You don't control anything. So the only way to fully move on is to practice letting go of what you can't control. And a more practical a practical tip I could give to people is focus on the physical sensation of whatever it is that you're feeling. So we're in our heads a lot of time trying to control things. That's the head. But the body is experiencing emotions consistently. And what you're running away from is an emotion. It's a feeling. And we spend so much time trying to run away from feelings. We try to cope with porn. We try to cope with, some people, alcohol, unfortunately. And, all these different addictions, they're coping mechanisms because we want to avoid an emotion. But how about you let the emotion be? You focus on the physical sensation. You surrender it. You just go, let it pass through me. And you feel it physically without labeling it. Oh, I'm feeling sadness, I'm feeling whatever. You don't need to do that. Focus on the physical sensation. And it's almost magical. It's not, though, but it's almost magical. Now, when you focus on it, it's just like, there's a sense of freedom. There's a sense of freedom. And there's a book, I don't have it here, Letting Go. Maybe you've read it. You probably read it.
By which author?
Dr. David Hawkins.
I have two of his books, but I don't think I have that one.
Okay. So I recommend it. Letting go. And
Well, no, I have one called Dissolving the Ego. It's not that one, right?
no, it's not. It's not. So I really recommend it. And so that surrender thing changed my life entirely. We can go into the detachment thing and the oneness if you want to, but
Sure.
it's kind of similar. The
Yeah.
law of detachment basically states that the more you try to control something and the more you crave it, the more you want it, you're creating a sense of lack. You're creating a sense of separation from it. And since everything is energy, and by the way, like I'm assuming people listening to you are kind of spiritual, but if someone is still hesitating on whether they want to believe if it's energy or not, it's like, well, think about it this way. What is your body made of? Atoms. Okay, cool. What are atoms made of? Smaller little things. Okay, don't remember the precise term. I think it's protons and electrons and that stuff. Okay, what are these made of? And you go smaller and smaller until you realize in the smallest particles of matter, the distance between atoms, the distance between the little things is like, what was it, 99.999% bigger than the particles themselves. And what the heck is that space? What is that space? That means your body is made of 99.999% space. And what is that space? That space is energy. So, with that being said, the universe is kind of like energy. So the laws of physics and energy really matter. And so that idea that the more you try to force something, that's the energy you're putting out, is the energy you're going to give back. And when you detach, when you take action in a detached way, that's when like results come quicker to you. But you still got to take action. You can't just sit in your bed and meditate all day long. You still got to take action. But if you do it in a detached way, not only are you going to experience, not only are you going to have more fun on the journey, you're also going to get the results faster. And by the way, with women as well. That's one of the things I'm teaching the guys. The law of detachment with women is so important. It is fundamental. If the woman sees you clinging on and you're needy, you're fucked, basically. And so the law of detachment, very important one. Breakups, like quality of the relationship. The more you're afraid of losing the person, the higher the chances of actually losing them. So if you
What do you think that is? Like,
yeah.
because like I've been through different experiences and stages in my life, I have been like reflecting on that, on like, yeah, let's say like on this type of relationships, but like in general, this tends to happen many times, that like fearing losing something leads you to have behaviors that like are supposedly like safety mechanisms that your mind like takes, so that you can like protect that thing, or like that overprotection, or that thing ends up like hurting the thing more, or in this case like the relationship. So like because of the fear of losing something, you might start developing like jealousy or things like this, and these things end up like hurting the relationship more and leading you to lose the relationship. Like, do you think it has to do with that, with like that unconscious process going on?
Yes. You can see it in a few different ways. You can see it literally in a question of frequency. So when you're afraid, you're in a lower frequency, and that is not a frequency that attracts. So by definition, you're pushing the person away just by on the level of frequency. And to the men out there, one thing about women is you can't hide anything from their intuition. Feminine intuition is so powerful, and I have so much respect for it. Like my female friends, or my mom, or when I have a girlfriend, like I always ask, okay, so what do you think about that? Just to know what their intuition says, because it's so powerful. So they feel the frequency so much. And oftentimes, at least from my experience with them, what they've told me is they don't realize it consciously necessarily all the time. They don't know what's wrong, but they know something's wrong. They just feel it. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, well, you said it, you explained it very well. When you are afraid, what happens is you get into control mode, right? You want to control things because that's a safety mechanism. You want to control. The problem is you cannot control another human by definition. That's not how the game works. So the more you try to control, the more subconsciously it's going to build resentment. And when resentment comes in, then you lose the passion. And when you lose the passion, eventually, well, the relationship fades away. Now, there's a thing where if I tell people, don't be afraid, now they're afraid of being afraid. So, like, that's where surrender comes in. And that's why it's so important. It's okay to be afraid. Feel it, let it pass through you, and focus on what you can control. That's it. You can't control thoughts and emotions that come and go. You can influence them. You can anticipate it. You can do the inner work. You can meditate. You can exercise. You can do all that good stuff. 100%. But there's always going to be part of it that's not in your control. And that's okay. Because otherwise, life will be boring. If you could control everything, life will be boring. So open yourself up to adventure. And, when fear comes, let it pass through you. And that's okay. The problem is if you try to start resisting it now. Now you're like, oh, I don't want to be afraid, so now I'll try to control my emotions then. And it's the same energy that keeps coming back until you practice the surrender thing. That's why it's so important.
Yeah, I want to dive into like the resentment part and how that affects relationships, because that's something that I think like has a lot of like value, in the sense that it's like very useful not to mess things up once like it's acknowledged and once it's made like a conscious thing, so that like you can do things that like not take you down that path of like resentment and getting to those situations. But like before that, some comments on some things that you have said, like well, first of all, thanks for sharing your experience like with your actual experience of how it has been for you with this relationships that you have had, with this path that you have had. It's interesting because like as we have been talking like right now after I started recording and like before that, I see that like our paths are similar in some ways, because like we both started doing like content creation at a similar age. I also started like my book blog, which was my first like formal thing online at 14 years old. And like I also have read, like I haven't read The Power of Now, but I read A New Earth. So I actually read that one first. I think that I've heard like to the audiobook of. You have it there? Cool.
It's there.
That's great. But no, yeah, like that book came to me when I was 15, I think, because of a friend who was like, he's probably your age. He's from Colombia. But like, yeah, he was also podcasting with a friend of his, and then they decided to like have each their own podcast, and then with this podcast he was interviewing people, Joe Dispenza, for example, and these.
Joe Dispenza, wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's been like growing a lot. But like, yeah, so we met, and then he told me about this book, and then I was reading it, and at the time it made like a lot of sense, because it came alongside The Mastery of Self, which is a book by Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. Do you know this book, The Four Agreements?
Yeah.
So like that one is written by Don Miguel Ruiz, and then The Mastery of Self is written by Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., so his son. And I mean, these books all talk about like these ideas of like detachment, of like not living or taking as the whole reality, that you have some perceptions of things, of like illusions, like letting go of these illusions too. And so like in that sense, I feel we have had similar experiences at similar times in our lives. So that's like something interesting to me. But like, yeah, and so another point is that like This, well, yeah, actually, these ideas of letting go, specifically letting go, like in relationships, have been things that for me have, like, I have had chances to test these things. No, I would actually call them like tests in my life, where I have had the opportunity, like, to yeah, to do them, like to let go and to practice these things. Because like for me it was, so since I started reading and doing these things during the pandemic, it was like mostly me in this room, like in my house, like reading, doing things online, so it felt more of like a safe, controlled environment. And then after the pandemic, once, so I went, by the time I was like, yeah, 14, then I went to high school, because like in Mexico here it's just 3 years of high school. So it's 3 years of like secondary school, which is after elementary school, and then high school. And so after the pandemic, after lockdown, I went to high school, and like that experience started becoming like a stage for me to start putting into practice these things that I had learned in the previous stage of like reading. So I mean that it was like that for me, but like through the years, things have gotten like more complex in some way, or not necessarily more complex, but like uh, they keep leveling up. So like I had my first relationship, and that was like 3 months, something like that. Then like right now I'm in a year and a, like, yeah, in a 14-month relationship.
Oh, shit. Nice.
So like, yeah, 1 year and 2 months, yeah. But like, yeah, through these experiences I have had the chance to actually practice that personal development side. Because like before it was only like, oh yeah, like exercising habits, like not necessarily positivity, but like focusing on what you can control and these things, which was very easy for me when I was like just in this very safe and controlling environment. But like after that, it started becoming like an actual test, an actual challenge, which I have been like going through the last years. So I mean that's something like very impactful in the way that many times I have failed at actually putting into practice these things. Specifically, like in this relationship that I'm in right now, like there have been many times when I'm not like in a very ideal state, or like ideal way of being. So I may be more like reactive. I'm not necessarily very focused on like some projects, on some like mission, because that's like something that helps me a lot when I'm like focused on a mission or on a project, on whatever. I feel like more passionate. I feel more connected, and many times when I'm not in that place, I feel like more reactive, resisting, and so yeah, like through these times, I have also had times when I don't let go of like control, or when I get angry for like very small things or things like that. And like with experience, it's like you learn those lessons again of like letting go, of like not controlling the emotion, but like just feeling the emotion. And that's something that I liked that you shared, like physically feeling the emotion, because it's easy to many times just fall into the thought of like, oh yeah, I will let the emotion happen to me, but like you keep thinking of the emotion, not feeling it. So like that's different. And so yeah, like with this, I am getting into this point of like resentment that you mentioned, that I want to dive into, because that's certainly something that I have been trying to learn about through experience and through like theory, so like books and those things, to not fall into things that lead me to that place, whether it's with my girlfriend right now, or with my family or friends, or if like with a friend, if I want to start like a project that turns into a business. Like in business relationships, like resentment isn't a good thing either. Like
Oh,
in to make things effective in general, resentment isn't a good thing. But like I agree that it's like this kind of paradoxical thing that happens, that like maybe if you try to not be resenting someone, you will end up resenting them, and like these things happen. So like yeah, I would like you to like just start diving into your thoughts on like how resentment is developed in a relationship, in any kind of relationship, like really just like how to not avoid that, but like really just handle that situation?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for sharing everything you just said, because it made me think about a lot of things I want to bounce back on, which is there's a big difference between knowing things conceptually and embracing them. So you can read these books, which by the way I recommend. You can read all of these books. But now the best way to test, okay, like, do I actually do I actually believe in the concept, is throw yourself out in the world, get into a relationship and see what happens then. Now it's a different game, right? And you've experienced that. What I tell people is the oneness point. What I tell people is like, sure, you read The Power of Now and you're like, we're all one. There's no separation between us. We're all just one consciousness. Okay, beautiful. Now, can you go approach a group of 10 beautiful girls and talk to them right there on the street? Can you do that? What will be the problem? If we're all one, what will be the problem, right? So my point there is, even if you know things conceptually, your subconscious mind, your emotional side, it's still, the ego is still there. So if you really want to grow, there needs to be a balance between taking the action in the external world, stepping out of your comfort zone, jumping, immersing yourself into the chaos of life as you surrender, as you stay aware of the fact that yes, we're all one. Yes, you're connected with the divine. It's beautiful. And you face your fears as you surrender. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasures you seek. Now that transitions into the resentment question. The way I see resentment, and that I learned a very hard way. In one of my relationships, I almost broke up. Like, I basically told my ex, I was like, I'm done. And she said, no, you're not leaving. Let's keep working on it. And because of that, we stayed together for another year. We ended up breaking up again. But the lesson I learned in the first breakup attempt, let's say, is that resentment comes from a lack of truth. Resentment comes from a lack of truth. You can see right there, 12 rules for life. Wait, okay, here. 12 rules for life by Dani Banchev. Rule number 8 is tell the truth, or at least don't lie. When he dives deep into it, you realize how important that is. Every little lie, every little micro lie, not only lie, but even every little thing you decide not to express whatever you feel. Every time you do that, resentment builds up. And what happened in my relationship at that moment is, when we decided, when I said, okay, we're breaking up, and she was like, no, let's work at it. We spoke for like a few hours where we just said everything. I just expressed all of the resentment I was building up. She was like, okay, tell me everything that you hate about me. I was like, okay. So I told her everything. And as I was saying that, so interesting, because as I was expressing that, my attraction to her was coming back as I was talking. And it was a very weird experience. I was like, what the frick is going on here? I even, like, the attraction really started being strong. Like, I started being sexually attracted. And I had all this energy, and I'm like, what just happened? Like, that was dead. That was dead a few hours ago. And now I just spoke truth. I expressed everything that was building up. And now they're like, the attraction is back. And the relationship after that was beautiful for a few months. Same problem came back. So in all transparency, I haven't completely figured out, like, okay, you know what? I have figured out the lesson conceptually. I am still having difficulty implementing it. So I know that resentment builds from lack of truth, but I still have challenges being like, fuck, like, it's tough to consistently express how you feel, because then you're afraid of hurting the person. You're afraid of, creating unnecessary conflict. And that's the challenge. That's really the challenge. Relationships are hard, man. Like, it's a challenge, but it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing. So I realize resentment comes from lack of truth. And, that doesn't mean start sharing all of your thoughts with your partner, but I would recommend maybe sharing your feelings. Like, I would recommend practicing being aware of your feelings. And by the way, just by the awareness, they're gonna chill down a little bit. And as you're aware of these feelings, you can just share how you feel in that present moment. And this way, like it's part of the surrender process. I would suggest focus more on letting go yourself of that resentment as much as possible. And then whatever's left, because you're still human, there's always going to be some buildup left. Whatever's left, from time to time, you can share with your partner, just making sure the resentment doesn't build up to the point where you want to break up. Right?
Yeah. No, I mean, what makes like perfect sense to me I mean, all of what you said makes sense and is like I agree with because of like my experience and my way of thinking. But like what really clicked, because that's something that I have been like repeatedly been coming back to, is like this part of how not telling things and how like really suppressing them, that's a word, right? Like suppressing them starts building that resentment. It's really like if you have like something that is about to, not necessarily about to explode, but if you have something very chaotic and you try like to like contain it within something, and like if that container is not like good enough, and if that thing keeps like growing in chaos, then like it's eventually gonna explode. Like that's what makes total sense to me, because like again through this last, yeah, well, like with in this relationship, like everything that we have to like discuss, or not necessarily conflict, because we it's not like there are many conflicts, but like misunderstandings or like differences in ways of thinking or of doing things, like these things that need to be talked in order for the relationship to work. Like if in each of those thing is like held back, then like you start to build that that thing that I wouldn't say is resentment maybe in the first place, but it's like some regret. Let's say like, oh, I should have said that, or I shouldn't have said that maybe, or like you start to have this regrets for these things that don't allow you to be like fully in peace with the conversation you have. And so this is the chaos that I'm talking about, and so it starts to build up and build up, and like it starts to like lead to this place of resentment. And I mean, an even clearer way to think about that is like if you maybe think of like a situation that an older couple might be at, which might have been like the woman might have had the chance to like go work in some big company, and that was her dream, but because of the relationship she ended up not doing that. That's also like that could lead to a lot of resentment, because it required that, like at the time it required like suppressing that wish, that desire, in order for the other thing. And I guess that in those cases it gets a little tricky, because you could think of like sacrifices that you make for the relationship. But like, yeah, what do you think about the differences between sacrifices that work in some way, and I'm not sure if sacrifices are the word, but like sacrifices and this other part of like things that you shouldn't have done because they lead to resentment, like bad choices.
Okay. Great question. Before I get into that, I just want to bounce on one thing. I had goosebumps when we were talking, because I was like, I felt a moment that I had to say something. It's like that idea of truth. You can try to manipulate or force reality with little lies, with little things, strategies to get what you want. But the question is, how do you know that what you want is also what you need? And when I heard, Jordan Peterson said that as well, and when I heard that, it basically, like that one idea shifted so much for me. Because I consider the way, when I look back at my life, I'm like a clever person. Like I can get what I want. And like I'm pretty clever in getting it. But then it's like, but wait a minute. I've had moments where I've gotten what I want, finally. And then it made me miserable because I didn't follow the truth. Okay, so that was just a thing added to like saying the truth is so scary in the moment. Like living by the truth, whatever it takes, is so scary, but it's like delayed gratification. It's always going to be worth it on the long term. Okay. So to answer your question, you said sacrifice versus, yeah, when do you know it's like a sacrifice that is worth making? I think that's the type of stuff that's like relationships. There's part of it that it's a mystery or something that is figured out along the way or something that is unique to each couple because or each friendship, even each like relationship, because man, I see it more as this continuum. So obviously, yes, if you're in a relationship, some sacrifices, some compromises will have to be made. Yes, otherwise, like, yeah, forget about it. Now, each person has to figure out how far are they willing to go on the continuum. And I believe there's no general rule, unfortunately, and it's just based on personal experience, trial and error. I also believe some people are more willing naturally in their personalities to sacrifice more for a partner than others. What I discovered about myself is, man, like I'm not that willing to sacrifice a lot. So, I have different standards, but when I look at my parents, my mom, my mother, like she adapted so much to my dad. So it's just like, and they're still together. So, it can work. It can work. If you want me to give you my personal opinion, I don't mind sacrificing little things like where are we going to eat? What movie are we going to watch? What activity are we going to do? Fine, I don't care. But sacrificing, for example, the country I want to live in, sacrificing the lifestyle I want to have, or even worse, kids versus no kids, that to me is crazy. If someone sacrifices that for a partner, that to me is completely crazy. But some people do. So anyways, like I think it's a scale, right? On one extreme, you would have having kids versus not having kids. Sacrificing the idea of creating a family because someone doesn't want to create a family, that would be probably like the most extreme example. And then on the other extreme is like, what are we going to eat tonight? It's like, so I think it's really a scale, and each person has to realize where is their limit.
I mean, that limit is figured out through experience many times. So it's like maybe you thought that you were able to sacrifice something like big, like, oh yeah, I don't mind where I live, like which country or whatever. But like when the moment comes, you might realize like, oh shit, I actually do mind, and things like that. And actually, this so like when as we're speaking about this, I think of like the importance of compatibility in some way, like because I guess it would be easier for a relationship to work long term and also like more smoothly throughout the way if like both people are very similar in some like foundational things, like maybe not necessarily and like, oh yeah, she likes sushi and I like pizza or whatever, but like having the like yeah, like foundational parts of each person's identity that are like, oh yeah, you're not religious and I'm not religious either. Like those are those like very basic things that can end up like creating a big impact in the long term. And like as we're saying this, like another thing that I thought about earlier is like this part of like, yes, compatibility in the sense of like things we like, things we are willing to sacrifice on these things, but also like on how we communicate. Because like for as we were saying, like regarding resentment, speaking things and like really not holding things back and like keeping honesty and truth as the basis for conversations, like that's essential. But like if the way of communicating those is not effective either, then it might just like not really work in any sense like that.
Yes, 100%. So those are like that's when we get into like the cheesy communication kind of advice where it's like, of course, don't blame, share how you feel. Like I feel this way, and then actually there's one that is different than what you usually hear. So one of my role models is Tony Robbins. So I listen to a lot of his advice. And one time he said something that was very powerful. And he said, we all know like talk about yourself, not about the other person. Fine. But how about you share, again, coming back to the physical sensation, how about you share something that is undeniable? Because let's say you go, okay, that's a good example. Let's say you go, I feel like I got stabbed in the back. It's like, that's a metaphor. That's an exaggeration. That's a story you created. You're saying she stabbed you in the back, but like you're saying it in a clever way, right? You say, I feel like I got stabbed in the back here. How about you say, I feel this, it's almost as if it burns inside my chest. Like I feel uncomfortable. It's like, then she can't deny that. There's no place for conflict. It's like you just shared how you feel right now. And it's, so the way he explained it is focus on things that are undeniable. It's like, you can't really, and so that way you can express, okay, not only can you express it in a way where it's zero confrontational, like absolutely zero, but also it gets you to surrender easier because it gets you to focus on the physical sensation instead of the thoughts about it. Because the mind can build so many metaphors. The mind can go like, yeah, I got stabbed in the back and now I'm bleeding. It's like, that's all metaphors, exaggerations from the mind. In reality, it's just like, yeah, you just feel uncomfortable right now. There's a little feeling here and that's it. And as you're talking about it, probably it will chill down much more.
No, yeah, it's like even if thinking of it in an actual physical situation where you just like hit your elbow with something and you're like, oh, my elbow hurts because of this. Like it makes total sense because it's not like blaming in any way the other person. It's just like expressing something that is happening, and that like it's not confrontational as you're saying. Like that avoids falling into tone of conversation where you are like fighting in some way. That's actually something I want to know your opinion about, like this maybe cheesy, maybe effective way of thinking about conflicts in a relationship where it's like it's not you against me, but it's us against the problem. Like, what do you think about that?
I think it's very cliche, but there's a reason for it because it's true. It's true. Of course. If you approach it me against you, like, yeah, there's no way that ends well. But understanding, again, it's a very cool conceptual frame. Like, it's more in the conception, but it's still a good perspective to have. It's like, no. Let's together work to face the actual problem. I think it's a great philosophy and belief to have. Yeah. I want to jump back, by the way, just to make sure we don't miss that one, on what you said about you want, how do you call it? Like the word that comes to my mind is aligned, compatible. Okay. Brother, that matters so much. So you gave a great example. You can't go too like in details. Like I don't know. You gave a funny example. So, like we already understood. Like you can't find someone who's exactly the same in every single little thing because it will be boring anyways. But you want your natures to be aligned. Your nature. So I'm gonna give you an example. I was like, so when I went through the breakup, I started listening to these tapes about relationships and be like, okay, I got to figure that area out in my life. And Tony was talking about how everyone should make a list of the non-negotiable values / traits of character or maybe nature in the other person. Like it's a non-negotiable and you know it in advance before even getting into the relationship. You know it in advance. Like it's you won't be able to be with someone who doesn't have them, Because what happens is when we meet someone, the spark, oh,
Mm-hmm.
we're so attracted. Oh, we see only the beauty, and then we forget about that. So if you don't get clear about that in advance, you get in a relationship, and then you're like, fuck. Like it's a challenge that cannot be solved because your nature is different. That was a big problem in my last relationship. So what I did is, for example, a very foundational value for me that now I learned is a non-negotiable is curiosity. It's so simple, but I'm such a curious person that I cannot be with a partner who is not interested about stuff. It doesn't need to be exactly the same as I am, although of course I would like it would be cool, like someone who's interested in spirituality or human beings or human nature, psychology, like all of that stuff. Of course, that would be really cool. But as long as I see passion, interest, curiosity about something and I see it, like depth of thinking, that to me matters and it's a non negotiable. So that's just an example. That's something that, let's say you're a curious person, the other person is not curious at all. I'm sorry, but it's going to create a lot of problems on the long term. You're going to feel misunderstood. You're going to feel like you're not interesting. The person doesn't ask questions. It's not going to be like, it's not going to work on the long term. So yeah, like the compatibility thing, you want to focus on the non-negotiable values and they are necessary for the long term.
Which I mean is an advantage for people who are single, like because I mean, I guess like there are three situations, like whether you're single or you're in a relationship, and I mean you didn't plan it, but your nature aligns with that of the other person. So that's the second case, or the third case, you're already in a relationship where the nature doesn't align. Like I guess the worst situation to be in would be like the third one, because like you're already also like attached to that person, and like it'll be more difficult to actually let go and to realize that like your natures don't align. And like the other two, you're in a more easy place, because like if you're single, you can like do this exercise very easily and just like think of it and like start approaching relationships from that place. And if you're already in a relationship where nature of being is aligned, is like I mean it was not luck necessarily, it might have been something you created for yourself unconsciously and consciously, but it's like okay, like it worked out well, which I guess is what most people would strive for when like looking for a relationship. Then like another thing that I wanted to mention that we have been also discussing is like yeah, this idea of surrender to the emotions. Like we have been talking about that like in this case of like having conflicts and like going through conversations that avoid building resentment and these things, but like that habit of like not that habit of surrendering or not surrendering to the feeling and to the moment is not just a habit that you build and use in those situations. It's also like maybe even outside of relationships, like oh, I'm working and I'm like tired, and I'm resisting that feeling and I'm not even like fully committed or like invested in what I'm currently doing at the moment, and like that happens in many other things. So like how do you cultivate that, like through your every action, I guess?
See, I'm surrendering right now, literally. So the way I would, man, you're so like, in my personal experience, it has been most beneficial in relationships, just because that's when the most emotions are created, like the most extreme ones, right? But brother, like in a way, surrender is alignment with the divine. Now we might go a little bit in the spiritual, but it's the idea of, okay, do we all agree that there are some questions that are still unanswered. No one has ever actually answered some of the questions. Even if you go, okay, like the universe has been created. No. Let's say science gives you the how or the what. It's like, okay, there's a quantum field and then there's all this energy. But then you go, why? Why? And then it's like, oh, no one knows. So when you dive deep, you zoom out and you go to the core of that mystery of life that is so beautiful. What happens is you just get, like I'm feeling it right now. You have this beautiful, to talk about physical sensations, it's almost tingling. You have this beautiful, like, oh my God, this is a mystery. What the heck is going on here? And you kind of surrender to that mystery and you realize you are not fully in control. Your heart is beating right now as we're speaking, whereas the people are listening. Your heart is beating right now without any, like, you don't control that. You don't control that. It's keeping you alive. The thing keeping you alive is completely out of your control. How about that? Right? So you surrender to the idea that there's some mystery out there. Something is happening. And, you know, we don't know why, but we know there's a reason because it's happening. And that's the beautiful, like, surrendering to that idea that, there's a quote, bro, in the New Earth that kind of summarizes that. I don't want to mess it up, but it was like, I think it was like, life is the dancer and you are the dance. So it's this idea of surrendering to, like, the flow of life. Surrendering, it's a very deep one. It gets you to really think. This idea of surrendering to the dance of life, the flow of it, whatever, the adventure, the mystery, whatever metaphor you want to give it. And as you do, not only does life become lighter, more fun, more enjoyable, and also you tend to see that it starts getting easier. And what's cool is, once you realize, here's why it's really cool. And maybe some people listening again, there's some resistance coming up in your mind. There's some resistance. What's this guy talking about? That's some woo-woo stuff. Listen to that voice. Listen to that voice. Because that's the ego. And that's okay. We all have it. I have it too. So listen to that voice coming up. That confusion, maybe that, like, oh, why am I listening to that even? That's some, I could be listening to something more practical, whatever. Listen to that voice. As you start realizing you are not that voice, you are not that mind, and you're actually in this mystery. It's like, what the heck is going on? We're on this globe in the middle of nowhere, all little humans walking around on Earth, all thinking that our personal lives are so, like, complicated and so serious. Well, in the end, it's just a big chaos in a way. When you start realizing that, what's cool is that when you come back to practical reality, life becomes playful. It's not so serious anymore. So the idea of surrendering to the truth, as deep as you can go, the reward is you start approaching life as playful. So to answer your question, now, one part of the play is relationships. Another part of the play is business or career or mission, something you do in the world, something you create, what you're doing right now. That's one way you play with that thing we call reality, like you're creating stuff out. You take
like with creativity.
Exactly. You take it from the unmanifested world of your mind and you put it out into the physical reality. That's really cool. That's play. And your body, it's like, let me create the body that I want. That's cool. That's play. And all of a sudden you go from, you do the same thing, the same action, because again, if you care about results, which most of us do, it's going to take action. That's for sure. But the action you can take it from two different places. You can take it from a place where it's fear, and that's when it's like, you take it seriously. Oh, if I don't make that money, oh no, like, and it's all like you make it very serious. Or you can take that action from a place of love. And that's when it's play. You're having fun with it. You do it for the sake of love. Now, it's easier said than done, but it's worth it. It's worth it. Because there's examples on both sides. You look at the greatest spiritual leaders of all time, the success that they reached. Like Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle is a millionaire, living the dream lifestyle of a speaker, traveling around the world, living his purpose to the fullest. That's beautiful. He's a baller, right? He did it entirely out of love. Entirely. Not a single moment of hustle culture. At least it's what I believe or feel or what he expresses. Then on the other side, you get someone like Hormozy, Alex Hormozy, who is like, who his core principle is you get motivation out of lack. Therefore, you got to create lack in order to take action. That's okay. Both of them achieved their dream. Both of them were super successful. They created a lot of good in the world. But what was the energy behind it? And you get to choose. There's no right or wrong, but you choose. Do you want to have a life of peace, love, fulfillment, or a life of stress, not feeling good enough, pressure? You choose, right?
Yeah, no, and like one thing that I would say is important to, like to highlight with that is that it's okay to have like different stages where the energy you are coming from is different, because like it might be like I guess this would be like the standard, or not sure how to call that, but like it's usually that way, that like when you're young, like we start like out of ambition and of like lack, and those things, and once you're like older, like you see these older people who are like just starting to come from this place of like giving and like relaxation in some way. And I've heard that like I was listening to this modern wisdom podcast with Naval, like the one that they released like just, what was it, like 2 weeks ago, three weeks ago. But like I remember it was in the first like 20-30 minutes of the podcast that Naval was like saying that like you can't create results from like either of these places. Like you're playing the game, right? And so like you can play the game just for the sake of it, or because you feel like you need to play it and you need to win it. But like in his case, how he approached it and how he likes to approach it is like with a new game, like to really just play for winning, and then like afterwards is just like play for playing. And what I mean with all of this is that like I think it's okay to have like different stages in life where you're like approaching things from different places, and also like for different aspects of your life. Like maybe for a relationship, you don't necessarily have to come from a place of like ambition and like lack. Maybe it's actually less effective if you do it that way. But like for building wealth, it might be like your effective approach to do it, to start from a place of lack. The thing with this, I would say, is that can create like confusion within, and that can also come with like feelings of like opposing feelings. Like you might feel very loving in your relationship, and like very lacking and like driven and like business wise or whatever, but then like feelings start to like go to the other aspects, and so all of a sudden you start like feeling lacking on your relationship, and like that happens, I think, and that's part of the play of life, as we have been saying. Like it's just it's part of like playing the game and living the game. I like the quote that you shared. So like I was reading this other book. It's by a smaller author. But yeah, like in this other book, he has a chapter in which he like mentions these four phrases, and so it's like the typical like life happens to me, then like life happens for me. But then he mentions, so there are two layers, like life happens through me or life happens as me. And I would say that like the quote you mentioned this and this other two, right?
Ooh, I got goosebumps. Hell yeah. It would be on, like, it would actually be somewhere in between 3 and 4, level 3 and 4. Because these levels of consciousness, like, yeah, the oneness, to come back to your first ever question, just a little loop, is like, oneness is life happens as me. Like, I am alive. Because, again, that is the ultimate truth. That is the ultimate truth. So, I have to say this. A metaphor I love to give for people to understand what I mean when I say we're all one. We are all branches of the same tree. Like, yes, there's Dani, there's Emiliano, like, yes, and we're both unique, yes, but we're part of the same tree though. Like the foundation is the same. Right? So like life is happening as me is a state of mind where you realize you're the same tree. Then what was it? Life's happening through me. That's the state of surrender. And that's, I would say, what personally I think is the most optimal one. Because if you go life is happening as me, you can end up being like a monk in the mountains not doing anything, right? But if you still want to experience the game of life, you're still human. So you're going to come back to source or paradise, whatever you want to call it. You're going to come back to whatever happens after death anyway. So might as well experience the game of life to the fullest. And life is happening through me is a way where you get to surrender and realize if the purpose of life is to experience it, then might as well experience all of it, even the bad stuff, even the painful stuff. That's what surrender does. It's like, give it to me. I want to experience it all before I leave this planet. And that is so beautiful. That's one of the most liberating things for me to be like, okay, you know what? I'm here to experience the whole thing. Even even the suffering, man. Give it to me. Because I want to be I want to be human. I want to experience it.
And one way of describing it that I like is like, okay, you're gonna let this different feelings and experiences happen through you, but like you still get to choose like where, and not necessarily when, but like where to experience those to create beauty. So like you might be having like some bad experience in our relationship, like you might be experiencing some like jealousy and conflicts and whatever, but if it's like with a person that you want to experience that with, because if you go through that process you'll end up like living something that is also more beautiful, and that like looking back at all of that process, the process itself is beautiful. Like we get to choose those things, and many times it's like we don't necessarily know how they will end up, if like it'll be the right decision to like be for many years with one person, or
You don't know. You never know. Exactly.
but like in another podcast that I recorded like a month and a half ago, so like I always ask 3 questions at the end of the podcast that are like standard questions. We'll get to those later. But like I ask like, what is something that you have like learned recently that you want to share? And so this guy, he shared something that he was reading in a book. Not sure what the book was, but like about this bigger decisions in life, like should you move to another country, or which country are you gonna move to, or like should you marry this person or not, should you have a baby or not, like these big decisions in life. Even though you can have like a list of like pros and cons, and like you can visualize how life would be like, and those things, with many of those big decisions it's like there's no like correct path. It's like either path is going to bring like great things, and either path is going to bring like not so great experiences. But it's like you cannot know those before the experience, because it's not like, oh, should I pick this restaurant to eat or this other one? It's like that's a big decision that happens once in a lifetime, and it's like you gotta go through the process, and that goes to embracing your own journey as well.
Exactly. And letting go of the other paths that you don't know. Like you don't like, for example, it's something I struggled with quite a lot. It's like looking back at the relationship and feelings of regret and being like, oh, should I have done that? Should I have done that? It's like, brother, that's out of your control. But like it's so funny how we humans experience regret, and we go in the past and we try to like rationalize so much. It's like you literally, like, it doesn't even exist anymore. It doesn't even exist. So it's like it's completely out of your control. It's completely out of your control. So yeah, it's making choices, taking the risks, and letting go of what's out of your control. It's like life will always be mysterious. You don't know. And that's the beauty of it. That's the adventure. Literally.
With this part of like making decisions, for example, another thing that I liked watching one of your videos is this reflection of like someone who is long term pursuing, or not necessarily pursuing, but like following a path of meaning compared to someone like who is on a path of like uh, constant pleasure and gratification, and how that like down the path like leads to very different like situations. So yeah, I would like you to like dive into this and into like your reflection on
Yes.
that.
Yes. So thank you for asking that question. A great thought experiment that I invite people to do when you're making a decision and you're not sure what to do is I like to push it to the extreme. I like to push both scenarios to the extreme. Classic example for guys. Most of my friends are like wrestling with that. I've wrestled with that so much. I still wrestle with that. Like it's a typical man thing. It's like, okay, should I commit to one woman, experience relationships, especially in your 20s, right? That's a like later on, I guess it becomes more obvious, although who knows, but like in your 20s, it's like, okay, do I commit to one woman while I'm still young? Do I build a marriage while we're still young, having kids at a young age? This way I can, like be a healthier dad and more energetic dad while I'm still young and all that stuff. Or do I live fully my 20s, you know, having fun with a lot of different girls? If you look at if you look at the immediate, for me personally, the idea of having fun with a lot of girls sounds much more fun in the immediate. But if you push it to the extreme and you go, okay, on one extreme, you reach a moment where you can basically have sex with more women that you can handle even. That's the case of guys like The Weeknd, guys like Drake, guys like Dan Bilzerian. I don't know if you know Dan Bilzerian, right? It's
Sorry,
guys
did
that
you hear that was? Oh,
no.
sorry, it was something outside. But no, no, yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Carry
No
on.
worries. Like Dan Bilzerian, he's a guy that basically reached a lifestyle where women were
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I know who he is. Yeah, like
like
he's very famous like on this like yeah, viral Instagram pages. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So yeah, he lives in a mansion, unlimited, like beautiful young women consistently basically begging him to have sex with them, basically like for free. He doesn't pay. So it's like this extreme abundance. And you look at these guys who are like maybe the closest example, maybe Elvis in the past, right? You look at these guys and you're like, do they look happy? Listen to the songs, listen to the lyrics. Read Dan Bilzerian. He wrote a book. Look at Elvis, who died of what was it, of overdose or something with drugs. It's like when you push it to the extreme, you have enough proof. That's not what's gonna make you happy. That's not what's gonna make you happy. Now, on the other extreme, you push the relationship thing to the extreme. So you have the most beautiful, most amazing family ever. Come on. Don't we have enough proof that this is gonna make you much more happy, much more fulfilled? There was a study done by Harvard. It was the longest study in history. I think they followed 1,000 men over 80 years. And the number one predictor of happiness and well-being was the quality of our relationships. The quality of our life is the quality of our relationships. So that makes you think. You go, okay, cool. What am I better off spending my time and energy on? If you have high standards for life, if you're aiming for greatness, what are you better off focusing on? Mastering, I don't know, things like pickup or things like, dating and, having a lot of women, a lot of different women and just casual hookups, or focusing on becoming the man you want to become, becoming the future husband, the future father you want to become. And of course, you can do both at the same time a little bit, but meaning, let's say you have high standards for the woman you want to attract and you want to be with. Then you would, approach women. So you still play the game on the short term of like being seductive, approaching women, but always in the back of your mind with, okay, like ultimately though, I'm looking for like the woman of my life because that's what I would rather have as a lifestyle in the long term. And you can do that with kind of everything. So if you're wondering between a 9 to 5 or a business, push it to the extreme. You spend your whole life and you could become the employee of the year. You get to the top of the company you're working for, you become, and you have a beautiful retirement. Okay, that's one option. You push the other to the extreme. You become a legend in entrepreneurship. You build a huge business. Then it's like, which one would you prefer? And that's personal. Like, it's less obvious, let's say, than the family versus the thing. That's personal. To me, it's all the way business, which is why I would rather, in the present moment, sure, sometimes it's uncomfortable. Like, people who have 9 to 5 jobs, they get a regular salary, and I'm out here like, it's chaos. Sometimes I have a lot of money, sometimes I can't. So, but I would rather go through that, because ultimately, if I push it to the extreme, that would be the story I want to tell one day. That would be the life experience I want to live. So that would be a great frame, in my opinion, to make decisions.
Yeah, I would rephrase it as like thinking of like how you want your life story to be, because it's like, yeah, I guess like for some people, like go, yeah, like any kind of decision where you have like two different paths, or even like more than two, but it's usually like two opposite paths, or two very contrasting paths. Like in any of those, in like any aspect of life, like even though in some it might be like more obvious, because of things like what you're saying, like I mean, it's something that has been studied that like if you don't have good relationships, probably you're gonna be less happy, you're gonna be depressed, more anxious, whatever, compared to like building solid relationships with people, based on like love, communication, authenticity, and like trust, and these things that we were talking about before, as we were talking about like the things that avoid resentment, or the things that lead you in another path that is not resentment. Like some of these things might be like a little more obvious, but like, yeah, in the end, it's just like, what is the life path that each of us wants to live. And like, yeah, I guess that also kind of depends on which stage you're living, because I mean, maybe if you just broke up with someone, you might say like, nah, I don't ever want to have a relationship again,
Yeah, yeah.
or things like that. So
Been there, done that for sure. 100%. Yeah, yeah.
but I mean, you, and like, being in a more calm state, I guess you're in a better position to like make those choices. Or I don't know, what do you think about that? Because like, yeah,
You know what? That's a tough one. I'm gonna be truthful and admit to you that's a tough one. And then I'm gonna note down what I want to come back to after, because I want to come back to something.
sure.
So, okay, that's a tough one. Here's why. There are moments in my life. You know what? Maybe I would say like some of the best decisions I've made in my life have been made out of a moment of very high emotion. So I don't know how much I agree that when you make a decision, you want to be in a calm state. Like, for example, that's one of my styles of decision making is, it builds up, and then I go, fuck it, I'm out. So when I moved out of my parents' house, that's an example. So, tension was building up. Like, I have a beautiful relationship with my parents. I love them. They're my favorite people in the world. And right now we have an amazing relationship, and I'm very grateful. But when I was living there, the resentment was building up a lot. Tension was building up. And there's one moment we had one conversation, and it degenerated, like it began to become a bit extreme, and some things were said. And in that moment, I literally made a decision. I was like, in the next 7 days, I'm out. And I don't have a plan. But I know I'm out of here. Now, that's a very emotional decision. But guess what? 2 days later, I was out. And that was one of the best decisions of my life. I met amazing roommates. It changed my life forever. And now I have a better relationship with my parents. How do you explain that? Right? So sometimes I guess like, it's a tough one. But I don't know for that one if I would suggest, making it in moments like when there's a lot of disturbance, because you can see it from this perspective, right? In order to make a decision, you need to have a disturbance. You need to like have some pain or some pleasure that you want, but you don't have. It's like it needs to be something powerful to make a real decision. So maybe actually I would lean towards, if you want to make a lasting decision, it needs to be a moment where you do have clarity. You have clarity on what you want, but there's some emotions that are stirred up. Actually, I would lean towards that.
No, yeah, what makes total sense is like clarity. Whether that clarity comes from like a very intense emotion or from a very reflective and like calm state, like clarity is like what will end up like making these decisions last. And like I mean, you end up learning too. So like, it's not like you maybe for something it's like a one way ticket. Like you cannot like undo that. Like maybe if you have a baby with someone, it's like I mean
Yeah,
there's no going back for that.
fair enough.
But like
And that decision is often made on emotions. So yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
but like then there are other decisions that can be reversed and that like you can make that decision of like undoing the decision with consequences but like undoing it um after learning, and like that's part of the play as well, of like this of the game of like doing these things of like, experiencing life and letting it happen through you. That's what I would say as well. What did you want to highlight?
Okay, a few things. Because, man, you've been giving a lot of beautiful feedback. This conversation has been great. So, you mentioned something about story, choosing the path that, would create a story that you would prefer. That's actually such a powerful way to see life. One of my favorite metaphors for life. Because, by the way, I invite the people to do an exercise. Okay, if I say life is a battle versus life is a test versus life is a gift versus life is a mystery, which one is life? Like, which one is actually life? It's all of them. Life is all of them. You get to choose the meaning you give to it, and it will be very different depending on what belief you choose. So if you believe life is a gift, life is a dance, it's a mystery, it's an adventure, you're going to see it much differently than if life is a battle, it's a test. But life is all of that. You just choose. So one of my favorite ones personally is life is a story. Okay? It's a story that you get to write. You get to be an author of your own story. You choose. You're the character. You choose what the heck is going to happen. To a certain extent. In stories, there's always surprises, there's obstacles, which makes it interesting. And I really like, that is something that has helped me so much. You can call it delusion. You can call it like, well, there's a word for that. There's a superiority complex, maybe. But I always, ever since I was a kid, felt like the main character. I felt like the main character. For some reason, I felt like I was the chosen one for something. And that allowed me to have so much fun in my life. And it gave me some confidence as well. And the way I see it is, you're very right. When you make a decision, think about it. If you watch a movie, what decision would make the movie more interesting? Because if you assume life is a story or a movie or whatever, that's going to make life very fun. And if you assume more, you realize that we all die in the end. So you're gonna have life, and then you're gonna move on to whatever is next. So might as well enjoy it. Might as well make it interesting. That's at least how I see it. So another frame of decision making is you choose what will make a more epic story. Will make life more exciting. Right? Because the worst place you want to be in, and that's another point I wanted to give. The worst place you want to be in, and unfortunately, most people are there because it's human nature. We fall back into that. The worst place you want to be is the settling land. My life is okay. It's pretty good. My relationship is fine. My job is okay. It pays the bills. Oh my God. You're much better off struggling than being in that position. Because what happens, you lose life, life goes on, and you're just in this like, yeah, I guess I just go on. And the reason we fall back in that is comfort, right? So we are afraid of the unknown, because the unknown for our ancestors through tens of thousands of years of evolution is associated to like danger. Like, what is safer, a territory that we know or a territory that we don't know? The one we don't know. It's danger. We could die. There could be a tiger. We don't know. So that's why we're drawn to the comfort zone. We're drawn to the, oh, no. My relationship is fine, because then the unknown will be scary. Leaving that person will be scary. And I've been there. So I don't say this out of judgment. I say this out of realization of human nature. It's like, I've been there. It's freaking scary jumping into the unknown. But if you remember your life as a story, you remember you're going to die one day, and remember you're going to you got basically this one life in this human form that you're going to experience. What will make a more epic adventure? Right?
How I would label that state that you were mentioning, like being okay or in comfort, I would also say it's just like maybe indifference to some extent. It's like whether you're like very happy and like joyful and like in this extreme with these things that happen, or whether you're like on the other extreme, like indifference is really just very comfortable in some way if you're already in a very comfortable situation, because that's like it even ends up like being turning off your mind, not even to have that that little spark or that voice telling you like, okay, you're comfortable, but maybe you should move, maybe like this is not the right thing for you, this is not what you are supposed to be doing, because like indifference is what keeps you like, they're not even questioning that situation you're in. So yeah, that's an interesting and tough one, I would say. Like maybe if you're already in indifference, like getting out of it is like tough because you don't even know that you're there. In some situations. Like the other thing, I want to know your opinion on that is like, so there are these times like it changes as life keeps moving forward. So, like there are these times when you might be like very happy with something. Let's go back to relationships where you're like very happy with the relationship, then you're like kind of sad because you were spending like a lot of time together, and then like something happened and like you weren't able to like spend as much time as you used to, and so like now you're sad for that. But like then you come to a stage when you're like kind of not indifferent, but like in a midpoint, in a very like neutral stage, and then you maybe go back to like being happy and like that. How do you think about making decisions through this process? Because like, I mean, if you're in the part of the process where you're at a neutral point, like that's just a stage in some way. It's not necessarily how the whole process has been. If the whole process had been like you being neutral and indifferent, maybe yes, like it has been that way. But if it's just a stage, how do you realize that not to fall into making a very quick decision of like?
Okay. Good question. I don't believe there's a specific formula with that one as well. It kind of comes with experience. Like, how much are you willing to tolerate indifference, comfort? How much are you willing to tolerate that until you make a decision? That's to each. Now, obviously, it's not going to be like there's 1 week in your relationship where there's indifference and then, I got to leave. Like, maybe for some people, not for me, but like, it's a different scale for everybody. Some people stay in 10 years without doing anything about it. That's like another extreme. So you mentioned a few different stages. I think that actually can apply to everything, everything you're going through. There's moments where it's going to go very well, moments where it's going to be like kind of neutral, and moments where it's going to be difficult, right? So one of the main skills, and Tony Robbins talks about a lot about that you want to develop in your life is pattern recognition. So you want to study your own personal history. You want to study because success leaves clues, but the best clues are your own. So you want to study. Like, that's why self-awareness is so important. That's why I believe in journaling as well. You notice patterns. That's what's so beautiful about like gaining experience and contrast in life. And you know, when you go through failure or breakup or like pain, that's all lessons that build up. And then you start looking at patterns. So if you're going through a good period in your life, then by all means, keep doing what's working. Just keep doing what's working, right? Do more of what's already working. That could be a good way to see it. Do more of what's already working. If you're in a neutral phase, please get uncomfortable. That's what so the way I see it is, as soon as I feel comfortable in something, and that's the way I do my coaching as well with my clients, my philosophy is consistently getting them to step a bit out of their comfort zones, just a bit every day, every week, because you don't want to be in that place. So chase discomfort. It can be anything, but just make sure to bring a little bit of discomfort in your life if you're in that stage right now and you realize you're in that stage. The solution would be find a challenge, face your fear. Remember the quote, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasures you seek. So face your fears. That would be my advice. Easier said than done, but it's a habit. It's a muscle you can actually develop, literally. The more you face discomfort and fears, the more you get comfortable doing it. Okay? And if you're in a bad moment, depends how bad, huh? Depends how bad. So I want to be careful with my answer here. It depends how bad. If you're in a bad moment, realize that the pain will leave once it's done teaching you. Every single challenge in life, no matter how difficult it is, serves as contrast. The best way you can experience happiness, perhaps the only way, is in contrast with suffering. Because otherwise, if you were always happy, that will be your new baseline. That will be your new comfort. That will be your new boring. So, like, not only does it serve as lesson, but also as contrast, which makes you appreciate the beauty after. So first of all, realize that. Look for the lesson within. See it. That's when you got to become a student of life. Actually, that's how I would answer. Become a student. Because pain, suffering will leave you down. Like, if you actually see it as a student and you know, you're looking for solutions. That's what creates the value in your life. Most of what I have in my life right now that I cherish so much, my entire business, the entire lifestyle, my skills, the person I am that I'm proud of, it comes out of these difficult periods. I've suffered looking for a solution to my own problems and, you know, get curious. Okay, where does that come from? What's the feeling I have? Get curious. And eventually that will turn into a beautiful upward momentum. So I don't know if that answers your question. But
Yeah, because I mean, the question itself was just like, what was your thought on like that, like going through those points and how to handle them. Like one thing that is very relevant here, I would say, is like, yeah, pattern recognition is certainly like one that. Actually, not one that is like very valuable. It's probably the most valuable thing you can do when reflecting, when having this periods of like going through the feeling, letting the experience happen through you, and then like using that experience as feedback from life and from yourself and from other people. Is like pattern recognition can tell you many different things. Like, yeah, again, like habits that like very clear and obvious things, like habits that you were doing a lot when you were feeling great with your body or whatever. Or you can see like habits of, oh, by that time I wasn't feeling like I was feeling very tired and my habits were these things. So like these patterns, doing these things doesn't help me to like feel good. It actually leads me to that other place. So like those are very common, not very common, very obvious patterns. But then if you keep diving deeper into those, And you can keep diving deeper. I would say like through more reflection or talking with people or like different books and tools. I mean, right now even like AI, you could just say AI to like help you get different perspectives of
So
like,
true, man.
but
Like,
like, mhm,
yeah, sorry. I've been journaling with ChatGPT, by the way. It helps so much. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, exactly. Because no, because it gives you like a lot of perspective that you hadn't necessarily seen. And what I'm going to with that is like you start to recognize patterns that don't necessarily tell you something that is very clear about this moment of like I exercise, I feel good, but like you start to see like, oh, with this partner I have been having these patterns, and even though we have good times, we have bad times, we have like somewhat neutral times, these patterns over time will keep leading us to a life that we both want to live. So that might be like, oh yeah, we have the pattern of like looking for adventure in different ways, and so like you see that that pattern has been repeating, and you see that that is a product of like the nature of each of you, and so like that's a deeper pattern that is not necessarily as recognizable at first glance, but like when you start reflecting on that, you like start to notice these patterns, and that those things can tell you like I mean they help us tools for assessment of like, oh okay, yeah, this pattern tells me like that this is the direction that I'm heading. Is this the direction that I want to go? Yes, no. And then like you have more information to know what to do with how you play the game, for how you start writing your story. And I mean with all of those things we have been like connecting the dots of all of this 90 minute conversation.
Man, so powerful. Okay, I'm gonna say, I don't know like how long you wanted this to last, but like there's another important point that I just want to cover. We mentioned how pattern recognition comes from experience. It comes from like you gotta do stuff. That's why it's so important. Please, especially if you're in your 20s, like if 20s or younger, obviously, but like if you're in your 20s, maybe even 30s, who knows? But like for sure the 20s, take a lot of risks. Take risks. Do stuff. Fail fast. Fail early. Fail forward. Like wisdom, a cool way I've conceptualized it is wisdom comes from self-awareness plus experience. So you can read all the books. Does that actually make you wise? Perhaps. I wouldn't categorize, like it might make you intelligent. Would it make you wise? I don't know. Like wisdom to me, I see it as different than intelligence. So it's like get as much experience as possible as early as possible. Like try stuff out, do stuff, fail. It's okay. Like that's gonna give you the contrast that you need. That's like the adventure of life. I just wanted to spread that message.
No. Yeah, I totally agree. Because like, it's something that you hear a lot. Like people, especially like on the internet and on Instagram, people saying like, no, you should go live. You should try like different things. You should like be doing this, been doing that. Fail, embrace failure. Like really just test things, and like that way you will figure out how you want to live like the rest of your life in some way. And I guess that yeah, that gives you more context and perspective, and like that way you don't like define your identity and who you want to be in life based on like the few people you interacted with during your first 15-20 years of life. It's like if you have many different experiences, you're in a more wise and like experienced, of course, place where you can like decide how you want to live your life. Because I mean, the other way is just like by default. Now you're in a place where you can like choose. Okay, will I choose default or design like a path for myself? So that's something that I totally agree with. And like again, I think this is relative for each person, because some people might say like, oh, okay, if it's that way, like during my 20s I should like, getting back to relationships, like date as much people as possible, because that way I will know what I do like, what I don't want, and like those things. But like for some other person, it might be like, oh no, I do want to keep being with this partner that I currently have. Because I mean we get along pretty well and we have like similar natures, and I have realized that because I analyzed our patterns. And so how I want to be experiencing things is like to experience things with that person and to
Exactly.
take risks with that person. So what I'm saying with that is like it's relative for each person. It's not like taking risks and doing things means that you should like burn all the bridges. It's like it
No.
depends.
Exactly. What it means though is do stuff that you're afraid of. Take risks. Like, if you want to take risks within your relationship, do it. But like take risks. That's the whole message. Please don't get comfortable in your 20s, right? That's what I meant. And what I noted down is, so you mentioned perspective, and it made me think. If we assume perspective is everything, and we've heard that a lot of times, like that's one thing that you hear a lot, like perspective is everything. The thing that you look at changes when you change how you look at it, right? You can look at something from two completely different perspectives and experience life in a completely different way. We don't experience life, we experience the life we perceive. Okay, so if perspective is everything, then perspective comes from contrast. You need contrast to be able to perceive. Okay, cool. Therefore, we should optimize for contrast. We should optimize for like actually experiencing the ups and the downs. That's what like if you're going through a difficult period and you're listening to this, please hear this. Like it's serving you. It's serving you. And I know I've been in very dark periods as well. It's not to minimize what you're experiencing. Like it sucks. It sucks. But you're not alone, and it also serves you on the long term. So remember that. And also, you mentioned the design thing. I love it. Like the default. Like you either live by default or by design. I love this so much. I love this so much. Like you either create intentionally as much as possible, or you kind of settle for, okay, I guess I'm gonna do what people around me have always done.
One thing that I have been reflecting on recently about this part of like designing your life is like life design many times is so like well, extra context for this, I actually in January just started a newsletter on life design, so I like talk about different things in that newsletter, and I mean it's just fun to always keep coming back to these topics, and I enjoy that. But like yeah, life design is many times thought of like in terms or in areas like that are usually discussed by people like Tim Ferriss, for example, like oh yeah, productivity and like then time and location freedom and things like that. But then it also comes to like how you like designing how you live and approach different things in life. And an example for me is like the projects that I do and like how I approach them is like designing whether you are really embracing them or just leaving them because it's like the thing that you're currently doing or whatever. And like I think that's a very important part of the whole process of like life design and like decisions in general to like commit to the decision you have made or that you are making and like embracing it. And like well, my favorite book is Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. Have you read that?
Yeah, I have. I
So you
haven't
know
read it,
this.
but I've heard of it. Yeah.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, it's like I enjoy it a lot because it's like kind of personal development, kind of like reflections, fun stories. And I mean, yes, it's just a book that I enjoy a lot. But like one part of the book, he talks about like how he changed his career path like just before college, because he was gonna turn into a lawyer, but then he was like, okay, no, I actually want to be an actor, so I want to go to acting school. And like he was talking with his dad, and like he it was just like well, as he like the way he puts it in the book is like it was just a quick phone call, and he was like, dad, I have to tell you something. And his dad is like, okay, yeah, what is it, son? And he's like, I don't really want to go to law school. I want to go to acting school. And his dad is like, are you sure about that? And McConaughey's like, yeah, I'm sure. So like, solid. It's a solid yes, I'm sure. And then his dad is like, okay, yeah, then just like don't half-ass it. And like throughout the book, he keeps talking about this idea of not half-assing your
Yeah.
decisions. So like not uh I guess another way to put it would be like to not just put your feet on the water, but like to fully immerse yourself in like and swim and commit to these decisions and go through that process of like embracing what you're doing in each stage. So for example, when I was like doing the book blog thing, I really embraced that, and that was like part of like my identity. And then like, I mean, that doesn't mean that like that needed to be my identity for my whole life. It's like that was like that for some years. Then afterwards it was like more undefined. Then like I was traveling and backpacking, and that was more of my more my identity. Right now it's like, okay, I'm doing this podcast and personal brand. I'm doing freelancing that I love. Like for example, my main thing right now is like building a travel app for a client from the US, and it's like, I mean, I have been fully embracing that, like sharing that with people, committing time to it. It's like, and that makes that give, at least for me, that gives meaning to the things that I do, because like otherwise it sometimes just feels like it's designing your life in some way, or like doing things that you think you might want to do but like not really committing, and like without that commitment life feels like more empty in some way, I would say. I mean that's been my recent experience.
Yeah, and I would take that idea and push it even further because it's so important. How about being present and committed to every single moment of your day, even the most mundane ones? How about when you wash the dishes? How about when you take a shit? That can be something you actually appreciate and be present while you're doing it, right? Might sound funny, but it's true. It's part of the experience. And when you apply that presence to everything, it just, every little thing can become special. And that's one of the things you realize in mindfulness or like meditation is, if you do it like you go with your eyes closed for a long time, then you open your eyes and you look around your room and you start noticing things and details you never really noticed before, and you go, how beautiful is that? Like like what is even going on here, like all of these different things, and then you start appreciating every little thing. And that's the beauty. Yes. Yes.
And I mean, one part that is like very important is that like embracing every moment and like being very present makes them more special and like adds meaning and depth to them. But that doesn't necessarily need to mean that you will be very happy in every moment. It's like you experience different. I like to think of it like when you are trying different foods. For example, like one might be like more spicy, one might be like sweet, one might be like very salty or whatever. But it's like you don't necessarily judge them. Like you might like say like, oh, I like sweet better more than salty, and like I don't like the other one, or that's bad. But like, I mean, that judgment comes like afterwards, but like the experience itself doesn't include like any judgment. And it's kind of like that with this other experiences. So like for example, nostalgia, for example, yeah, that's a very different feeling than like just being joy and fully like relaxed, but it's still a very deep sensation and experience that has like a very unique taste to it, so to call it. And like it's special, it's unique, it's beautiful. It's not necessarily as uplifting as like you're just being happy or whatever, but it's an experience worth having, and that you can keep coming back to if you embrace every moment.
Absolutely. Because beauty, beautiful doesn't mean happy, right? Something can be beautiful. What about a sad song? It can be so beautiful. What about art? Art is rarely super happy, very rarely. Art comes out of pain, but it's so beautiful. So often we create the most beautiful things as humans through suffering and through pain. And that's what I can call the process of alchemy, the process of transmutation, right? So you take like what's beautiful about humans, and that's such a beautiful gift that we have, is we can take the most horrible shit ever and transmute it, transform it, alchemize it into like a gift, a contribution, a piece of art that touches people for the rest, like for thousands of years sometimes, right? It can be turned into a beautiful book that impacts every, like, that's, yeah, the process of turning pain into purpose. That's beautiful. And ooh, I think that's a good conclusion to the point that we just had here. The way you turn pain into purpose is by embracing the pain. It is by feeling it fully, experiencing it in the moment. And that's what allows you to then transmute it, alchemize it into purpose.
Do you know Zach Pograph? Do you follow him?
No, I've heard of his name.
He's the guy who talks about obsession on Instagram.
Then doesn't ring a bell.
No? Well, he like, I've been following him for like probably 2 years, 2.5 years. But like, his content has been changing over time, but like his key, like his core idea is like the idea of like embracing obsession, following obsession. And like recently, through the last months, it has been about like embracing pain and chaos and this like very complex experiences that have like very intense feelings included in them, and like with those like really creating something. So it's like embracing the chaos of like being an artist, of like loving a person like fully and deeply, and like yeah, I like his name and his work came to my mind right now that you were mentioning this, and it's like, yeah, that's what makes, again, it's like turning back to my reflection. It's like what makes these experiences meaningful, and what makes your work meaningful too. Because like you could get to a point where you get to this more like philosophical and like very long term like perspective, where you're like, oh yeah, everyone will die. What's the point of doing this? And like, it's like, yeah, that's a perspective, but it's like there is meaning to this thing that I'm doing right now because of my pain and because of like the embracement, because of how I am embracing it. And so actually with this, I think I it would be like a good bridge to go into another point that I wanted to like talk about with you, which will probably be like the last point before the my final three questions. But it's like, so like what I've seen you do right now, or one of the things you do, which is what you share on Instagram, is your school community. Yes. For people to, well, for men to quit porn. Like I've never had a like, yeah, problem with porn. Like I've never, that's never been a like a thing for me, because like it's not like something that I've like watched a lot at some moment or anything. So like I don't necessarily have that experience with me, but I know some people who might have had that experience of like really being in a state where it was maybe a lot, like watching it a lot, or watching it just sometimes, but like those times it was like obviously not a good thing for, but like, yeah, with these people that I've seen, I see that there's meaning and purpose and value in what you're doing, because you're helping this man, this guys, like to turn this energy, to transmute this energy into something useful, at least for themselves, like to create a good life, like beyond like this instant gratification experience that they're having through this not addiction. Yeah, addiction, that's how I'm gonna call it. So like, yeah, I would just like you to like dive into your work there, how that came as well.
Absolutely. Most people see porn as the problem, but the truth is it's the symptom of a deeper problem. So a lot of guys currently are realizing, okay, like I tried quitting, but I keep coming back to it. It's weird. It kind of feels like an addiction. Isn't an addiction. They start realizing it's decreasing the quality of their lives. So they're looking for solutions. And out there, what you see is porn blockers or apps. Like, I'm going to, download this app, and that app is going to keep me accountable. And every day I'm going to count my streaks. Maybe better than nothing. The problem is all of these solutions out there are what I call plaster solutions. So they deal with the problem only on a superficial level. They don't go to the root cause of the problem, right? And so what we do is we go to the root cause of the problem and we fix it so that it's not about resistance anymore. It's not about willpower. It's not about discipline. right? Because whatever you resist persists. It's about eliminating it from your life to the point where it's irrelevant. You don't even care about it anymore. And that's the work we've been doing, right? So the reason I said porn is the symptom of a deeper problem is because the only thing porn is, it's a coping mechanism. It's a coping mechanism. So coping is a universal human experience where we all need to cope somehow with difficult emotions because we're humans and there's going to be uncomfortable stuff in our lives. And everybody copes. If someone tells you, oh no, I don't need to cope, bullshit. Their way to cope is something they aren't even aware of. But we all find ways to, deal with difficult emotions. Now, people like you and I, maybe it's reading, having these conversations. When I have conversations like this, which by the way, I appreciate you so much, brother. I feel like we're going to be friends for a long time. This is the first time we talk about it. I really resonate.
I mean, I've enjoyed the conversation as well.
Yes, so much. So to me, that's a form of coping mechanism. Now, other guys, including me in the past for a very long time, my main coping mechanism was porn. And we all have different reasons different reasons to cope with. We all have different difficult emotions to escape from, and we all associate different things to porn itself, right? And those are the two things that I work with. It's like, okay, first of all, don't try to stop the habit without replacing it. Don't try to just quit something without understanding, well, why did you do it in the first place? There must be a reason. So then we realize maybe for some guys it's a sense of not feeling good enough, so they feel a sense of achievement because they associate the fact that if a woman gets naked in front of you, it makes you a valuable man. And so you have access to all of these beautiful women that are getting naked in front of you, and that makes you feel good enough. So that's a way for you to cope with that. Oh, very interesting. Some other guys, they feel so much pressure in their lives and they just want a sense of relief, a sense of escaping from responsibility, doing something bad, being naughty, right? Literally. Like, to be able to escape that. There's many different reasons like that. So the first thing is realizing, okay, what is the reason behind it? Cool. Now the second thing is, life is life. So you're going to have moments, when it's going to be well, and then you're going to feel good about yourself and you're not going to need to watch porn because everything is going amazing. But then something's going to happen. Boom, a breakup. Oh, fuck. It triggers all of these difficult emotions. Now what? If you haven't done the work to reprogram what you associate to porn, you're going to go right back to it. If it's still a coping mechanism. So you got to change the meaning you associate to it. So that's when we do all the subconscious work. That's the identity shifting. That's the blueprint reprogramming stuff and meditations. And, I can go deep into whatever technique I'm using, but it doesn't matter that much. It's we basically reprogram the subconscious mind. And we do all of this within a community where the reason that matters is because a lot of the guys, the testimonials I've received, a lot of the guys, they go, just the fact that I realize I'm not alone, just the fact that I can share that with people, it's already healing me. There you go. Because when I grew up, in that addiction, when I was growing up, if I shared it with people, it was two reactions. It was either judgment, so it was very uncomfortable to share it, or it was normalizing. Oh, we all do it. What the fuck do you mean it's a problem? We all do it. So it's it was very difficult for me not to have someone who understands me, that I can share it with. And so that's why I created the Off Porn Academy. And now all together, we can just share, and the guys feel like it's a family, they create new friends, and at the same time, they grow on the journey. That's what the community is about.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been doing that for?
So I've been in the coaching space for 3 years now. I've transitioned to that specific niche, let's say, about 2 years ago. And I'm now transitioning into a new level of my career/business purpose mission, which is, I realize, and it's funny because you're a manifestation of that actually, people start coming to me for advice for relationships. You just ask questions about relationships. And a lot of my clients, their main issue, the way the issue of porn has been manifesting is in relationships. And, I recently moved in with a roommate whose business, he's a dating coach. And so it's like all of these signs are like, okay, wait a minute. Like if I feel like life is calling me for that new level of the business where I start helping guys obviously quit porn, but then out of that, what happens? It's going to improve the quality of your relationships. And the quality of your relationships is the quality of your life. And that's something money can't buy. So I have all of these, like new purposes coming up, which is why I'm kind of transitioning into the whole space.
Into that.
Sorry. Or maybe even social mastery, social skills, being confident, self-esteem, all of that good stuff that comes out of quitting porn. Because when you quit porn, what happens is you have all this extra new time and energy. So what are you going to use that for? And that's what we focus on. It's like, what do you want to create out of it?
Okay, there are a few. Well, actually, not a few. It's two general questions that I want to ask, like about these things that you were doing with that community, and that might like bring other questions too. But like the first is, I guess this would be a briefer one. So no, I'll just share the two, and then you can like explore them however you want. So like the first one is, again, this is coming from me, that I have never had that like problem, that I have never had that experience of needing to come out of that addiction, right? Or that not even addiction, but like thing happening from time to time or whatever. So like, do you think that there is some, not necessarily advantage, but some difference in the path of someone who had that experience of like being addicted, or like watching porn sometimes or whatever, to then not watching and having this new identity? Is there some advantage or thing to their path compared to someone who hasn't ever experienced something like that? So that's like one part. And then the other one is just like your thoughts on this very different things, not different things, like different approaches to this sex related things. So like, I mean, there's this extreme of like watching porn and then quitting porn. Then you have like nofap in general, like nofap culture. You might have like then this other more socially accepted or socially even encouraged thing of like exploring your own body. You might then have even this other extreme, not extreme, this other side of the spectrum where it's like holistic ideas and philosophies of like semen retention, because it's like holding your creative energy. So like, yeah, I just want you like to share also your thoughts on like that spectrum. So it's like those two things.
Okay, cool. So that's a lot of questions. So I'm gonna just go with the flow and whatever comes out, and remind me if I forget one of the questions.
Sure.
So here's where I stand in my philosophy. I believe quitting porn is a non-negotiable, in a way where I would advise every single human being on this earth to quit porn, and I have my reasons for it. Now, masturbation is a completely different thing. It's like, I don't fucking care. Like, you can, like, I'm kind of neutral on that. Whatever makes you feel good, because I genuinely believe that for some people, masturbating from time to time, and by the way, here I'm talking about men, because women, like, it's a completely different relationship with sexuality. It's a completely different relationship with their body. So I have no expertise there. My expertise is with men. So when I say this stuff, it's for men. So some men feel like actually super good about themselves. They have amazing success. Everything is well, even when they masturbate from time to time. So I truly, like, this is your choice. Quitting porn is non-negotiable for a few reasons. And you can look at it from 3 different angles. You can look at it from the biological, you can look at it from the psychological, and the spiritual. Biologically, there's a part of our brains, the deeper part, that has been designed for 2 things. It rewards you for things that will increase your odds of surviving and increase your odds of reproducing. That's its job. It rewards you for that, and it punishes you for stuff that will hurt your survival or your reproduction. So, since that part of your brain cannot make the difference between imagination and reality, you have, in 2025, more access to beautiful naked women from the comfort of your own room without any effort whatsoever, without any risk whatsoever, than the number one king of the world a few hundred years ago. Now tell me that doesn't affect your brain. Tell me that doesn't affect your levels of motivation. So your subconscious mind goes, wait a minute, we just achieved the ultimate purpose. Look at us. We're reproducing with all of these beautiful women. What the heck is going on? So how can you get motivation for anything else? That's the first thing. That's on the biological side. Psychological side. Very often, there's shame associated to it, just naturally, for different reasons. You can be religious. I don't like shame. I don't support shame. But most of the time, guys begin their journey with, damn, I want to stop. Like, I don't feel good doing that. Something is off, I want to stop. Now they make a promise that they're going to stop. Now they keep going. They make a promise, they keep going. Make a promise, they break it. They make a promise, they break it. What happens? You lose trust in yourself. And self-esteem comes from self-trust. So the more you break your promises, the more you lose your self-esteem. So that affects your confidence. So far, we've said how it affects your motivation. It affects your confidence. Now the spiritual side. That's my personal belief. I believe sexual energy is creative energy. Why? Because it has the power to create life. Surprise, the reason you and I exist is because our parents fucked. They had sex. So sexual energy has the power to create life. It's so powerful. And you don't even need to believe me. You can experience it yourself. When you are on semen retention, for example, for a long time, you naturally start experiencing more confidence, more courage, more optimism, more excitement for life. That's what the guys have been telling me. All of them. There's no exception. There have been people who've told me like they've gone on semen retention for a while and they didn't really feel any difference. But not people in my community. People I've spoken with like outside. So maybe to answer your question, is there a difference? Maybe. Like maybe between someone who feels like he's addicted versus someone who doesn't feel like he's addicted. Maybe there's a difference in that aspect. And I'll come back on that a little bit later. So on the spiritual side, all of this energy can be used for so much more. So much more. You're giving your energy. So we mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza. In his book, Becoming Supernatural, he took the concept of levels of consciousness from David Hawkins, and he evolved it. He kind of created like an evolved version of it. So he calculated the frequency that our emotions create. And guess what? I used to believe shame was the lowest one. I hate shame. I don't like shame. Like I believe it was the lowest one. Joe Dispenza, in his book, says that lust is actually the lowest one. Lust. Now that's not to say having sexual desire. That's not what lust is. At least not how I define it. There's love. You can make love. You can make love. So having sex is not necessarily in lust. But then there's porn, which is purely lust. Like there's no love there. There's no love at all. Not even a connection, man. Like you can have casual sex with a woman, feel a connection. Maybe not, you're not falling in love, like whatever that even means. But like, you have a connection with the woman still. Porn is purely lust. So you're giving your energy away to the lowest frequency ever. That's what you're doing. While you can be using it for all of these beautiful purposes. When I approach it, I don't like, the reason you quit is not because it's shameful. It's not because of that stuff. That's not what I do. Because that doesn't work, by the way. Religion has tried it for a very long time, and there's proof it doesn't work. Why? Because the biggest, I won't say it because I don't want this video to be taken off from YouTube, but the biggest amount of inappropriate behavior towards children has been done in religious institutions, statistically. So we know that doesn't work. Labeling as something shameful, trying to repress it, does not work. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about using that energy consciously, being grateful for it, not escaping your urges, being afraid of them. Like, see them as a gift from God. It's all of this extra energy that's given to you. It's so beautiful. That's what I teach guys, and it's so difficult because a lot of them are in shame and they're afraid of these urges. And I'm like, guys, like, the urges are not the problem. It's how you react to it. Right? Okay, cool.
As you were saying later earlier, that's like what you resist persists, and
Yeah.
so it's like coming from a place of shame towards that and towards anything. I would say it's like you are trying to resist like the behavior or the approach or whatever you're doing because there is like this negative side to it, which is shame. But like since it's that that reason, the why for you doing it is like that keeps going on, and you keep falling into the same patterns.
Of course. Like the whatever you resist persists, you got it. It's beautiful. That's exactly like what I keep on repeating to the guys. And the shame is actually one of the root reasons why you keep coming back to it. Because remember, the reason you go to porn is because you want to escape some sort of discomfort, some sort of difficult emotion. Maybe that difficult emotion is the urge building up and you don't know how to handle it, so you just want to escape from that urge, okay? So shame is actually one of the reasons why guys keep coming back to it. But the more you come back to it, the more there's shame, and then you get stuck in this cycle, right? So the first step is to accept it, let it like pass through you, feel it, surrender it, and then doing the work. Okay. Now I want to come back to what you said. Is there a difference between someone who like is going through addiction versus someone who's never gone through it? The way that question resonates with me is because over the years, believe it or not, I was addicted to that for a decade of my life. And there's days where I've jerked off like 5 times per day. And it was very intense. And it created a lot of problems in my life. But even despite all of that, when I look back, all I have is gratitude. You know why? Because I believe if you break free, if you transcend it, if you transcend that addiction, that's one of the best things that can happen to you. And there's a few reasons why. And one of my favorite reasons why is because it forces you to have no other choice but to literally heal every area of your life. Like everything has to be aligned for you to transcend it. It allows you to have so much self-awareness, discover so much about yourself, give you so much contrast, learn so much wisdom. It allows you to realize how ridiculous your ego is, the mind is. It's like you have the intention of stopping, and then your mind is consistently saying, oh, let's do it. And you're like, what the fuck? That's not me. Ooh, you just realize you're not your mind. That's the first step towards enlightenment. So it's like, there's all of this hidden, it's such a blessing in disguise. Another reason why I'm so grateful for it is it allows you to have this comeback story effect, which is the most exciting part of movies. It's like, it literally gives you this story arc for your life. So you go, like, you have this huge contrast. Now, there's things that people take for granted that you're like, no, I'm so grateful for that because I've gone through so much, right? So there's so much hidden in that. And that's what I want guys to realize, like, be grateful for that blessing in disguise. And of course, it's going to take some work to turn it into a blessing because now it feels like a curse. But when you do the work and it becomes a blessing, it's one of the most beautiful gifts you could have gotten. I mean, it created my career. Like, it created so much in my life. And I'm so grateful for it. So, yeah, that's how I would answer to that question.
No, and to this last point, I would say that that's kind of what I was referring to when asking that question, because I feel like this comeback process you go through, like as we were saying, is like it boosts confidence. It like gives you more confidence, because like you know that you've gone through things and that you have overcome things, so like you are not afraid to go through something difficult because you've done something that was already difficult before. Like I guess that happens with a lot of things when you overcome something. Like that's with sports, for example, a lot of people who overcame an injury and had this comeback story or whatever. But like the thing that I would say is like the most impactful with this or with any type of thing that requires you to change, not something outside, is this part of like self mastery. Because if you have confidence because of a comeback that you had, but this comeback was something outside, then maybe that's not as impactful as having a comeback that was all about a process within, because it's like you got to a point of self mastery, and it's like everything else will be much easier since you have become more of a master of yourself. And I would say that, like, I don't know, let me know your opinion on this, but like this of course goes beyond like people addicted to porn. It goes like people who are very reactive and like want to get out of that reactivity loop, or like people who are always pessimistic, or these things where there's nothing to do but to change like yourself and to master yourself.
Absolutely. It's applied to every addiction out there. And I would say that's my hot take. Our biggest addiction is actually addiction to thinking. It's addiction to thoughts, addiction to the mind. That's the ultimate addiction. And that's the type of stuff that's talked about in that book, right? So every addiction comes out of pain, and pain or suffering comes out of identification with the mind. That's another way you can look at it. So yeah, just the process, like, is the process of breaking free. You know, what's more beautiful than that? Like the process of breaking free, achieving freedom. Yeah.
And that's the like getting back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like playing the game and just like knowing that there is resistance, there are obstacles, you get the adventure, you move on, you keep doing things, and so it's like what story you want to live. So I like that. Now I would like to start wrapping up this great conversation. I actually think it's the longest conversation I have had for a podcast, which is something that I like.
I was gonna tell you, man. I was gonna ask, like, is that the longest one? Because, man, I think we've been going for 2 hours, more than 2 hours.
Yeah. No, the longest was like 1 hour 50. But yeah, this. I mean, I love it. And I mean, I'm not sure how. So like some friends that listen to my podcast sometimes, like they give me feedback and everything, and it's like with long episodes, they usually have to listen to it throughout like a week, because it's not like they can just like do it in one sitting or whatever. But yeah, so I mean that's fun. I like that. So like as I told you, it's like 3 questions that I usually ask people. So like my guests that I like to ask, because they provide some deeper insights on things that we maybe didn't even mention in the conversation. So the first one is like, what is a book, a movie, a music album, a blog, like whatever that you have been watching or consuming recently that you have enjoyed and that you think is worth sharing?
Ooh, I have a few. Okay. Oh, it's tough. Okay, I'll give 2. Fuck it. I can't choose. So these two books. Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, and The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida. A spiritual guide to mastering the challenges of woman, work, and sexual desire. So Psycho-Cybernetics is about identity shifting. How identity creates action, action creates results. You want to change the results in your life, change your identity. How do you change your identity? Identity is built on proof. And the beautiful part about being a human is that we cannot make the difference between imagination and reality. So you can use that. Like, sure, if let's say the way I conceptualize it is, you got to win to become a winner. But most people, when they think about winning, they think about, okay, I got to do things in the external world. But it's like, wait a minute. You ever watched a movie where you knew it was fiction, yet you still experienced emotions? Maybe you watch a scary movie, your heart started beating. You knew it was fiction, but you experienced it. So you can use the imagination to experience moments in your life where when you win in your imagination, and you do both at the same time. Boom! It builds your new identity. You're a winner. Now you're confident, and when you're confident, you take more action, and then you get more results. So, Psycho-Cybernetics. Way of the Superior Man. Now that's like, it's not even, I can't conceptualize it like I conceptualize the Psycho-Cybernetic thing. Like, it's actually how to deal with chaos. So it's a beautifully written spiritual book for men who have struggled with woman, work, or sexual desire. So whether it's porn addiction, whether it's relationships like breakups, you know, finding your purpose, it's so beautiful. It talks about masculine energy, feminine energy, the polarity of it, and it just makes me appreciate life more and even woman more. It makes me be more grateful, even more grateful than I already was, for feminine energy, and to appreciate it even when it's chaotic, even when women test us. Because one thing he talked about, okay, that's something I learned recently that's very cool. Then we can move on to the next question. But
No, actually, that was the next question. Like, what was something that you have learned recently? So yeah.
cool, cool. So if women are listening to this podcast, we know your secret now. Okay, so here's what we might know. So in that book, what he talks about is feminine energy likes to test you. So, like, they might not know it consciously. Again, they don't go, today I will test my boyfriend. They do it to see if they can trust the man. They can trust the masculine energy. So a good, like a very important part of masculine energy is strength. Like, masculine energy is strong. It doesn't need to be, I'm not talking about like the superficial levels only. Like, yes, you look at a man who's muscular and automatically you associate that to more masculine than someone who's not, and that's okay. But there's also emotional strength. There's even more important spiritual strength. So what women want to feel is that they can trust you, that you can handle their ups and downs, you can handle the roller coaster of emotions they go through, because they go through a lot. So they can trust that you can handle them and stay present and fully embrace the chaos. And now when they feel that, they feel like they can surrender to you, and that's when their beautiful feminine energy comes out. That's been very interesting to me because I've been noticing it. And now I'm like, okay, I love it. Give me the tests. Like, I've been noticing it. It is so funny. So yeah, that's a cool lesson I learned recently.
Yeah, no, is it the first time that you have read this book?
I tried, no. I started reading it a while ago, but I found it quite difficult because it was affecting my ego like a while ago. And I had to do it. By the way, the same thing happened with The Power of Now. The first time I read that, I went through the first chapter. I went, what the fuck is that guy talking about? Threw the book away for a year. Then it was recommended to me again, and I was ready to read it. Same thing happened with The Way of the Superior Man. So I think there's books that are so, and maybe what I'm saying in this podcast as well, maybe there's people who are like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? They have this resistance. But if they listen to that in a few years, maybe now they'll be ready in their own evolution to hear that and receive that idea, right? So that's what happened with The Way of the Superior Man.
No, yeah, because I read that, when was it? 2022 probably, so it was like 3 years ago. But again, like 3 years ago, it was when I was like starting to have this transition. So like, I didn't share that with you, but like I was running my book blog, and then like that was very like meaningful to me because it meant like the first time that I was like living my dream of like having this entrepreneurial path and of creating things that I had been like dreaming of since I was like a little kid. But like it got to a point where like I started to have some resistance, and like let's put it in like the terms of The Way of the Superior Man, like this change in like my measure, like going a layer beyond. And so I stopped the book blog thing because I was like wanting like to merge both like my high school and teenager life, and then also like just like doing this entrepreneurial thing that I was enjoying and that I was even like starting to thrive at, because I was already like doing business with that. I was growing like a big audience. It got to like 40,000 followers on Instagram. So like it started to grow a lot. And like then I got to a point where I was like, okay, should I make a change? And then I decided to make a change like in my life to enjoy like differently the following 2 years of like high school. And those 2 years were like the beginning of actually being in tests of life where I had to put different things in practice, and sometimes it was easier, sometimes it was more difficult, sometimes I had already forgotten some of the lessons and I had to relearn them through experience, or I got like deeper insights and perspectives through experience. And like
Yeah.
I read the book like just before that transition. It was maybe like February in 2022 that I read it, and I had this transition in August or something like that. But like again, that was in a stage of my life where it was like, oh yeah, I enjoy reading this thing, and like it makes sense to me, even though I mean it didn't really make much sense since it's like a profound book, but like
It
some
is.
things made sense, even though I hadn't had like proper experience with like more with a more chaotic world, or with having a girlfriend, for example, or things like
Yeah,
that. But
exactly.
like yeah, that was by that time, and like I feel like right now I'm in a stage where it would be like a good read again to actually like
Yeah.
um, dive into it now that I'm like in the field, like playing the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. Hell yeah. It will be a
But
good
yeah,
one. Yeah.
I agree that it's a great and profound book, and like one thing that I like about it is that it also like I think that it's maybe just like in one of the latest editions that it's like it clarifies that it's not necessarily like about men and women. It's really more about like masculine energy and feminine energy, and so we all have both of those energies, which is like I mean, one friend, what he uses, like a metaphor he uses or an analogy that he uses to like better explain these two energies is like I'm not sure how that tree is called in English, but it's like let's just say like a very robust and like solid tree that is like very big and like yeah, strong, and like that's masculine energy, and then it's like feminine energy that is like almost a tornado like going on around the tree, and then like very strong wind, and it's like that's just nature. So like that event, that situation, that's just nature. But it's like for both things to be able to like happen simultaneously without affecting each other, it's like the tree has to be strong not to fall because of the wind, and if it is strong it will allow the wind to like flow chaotically and to really just be like yeah,
Yeah.
chaotic.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. It's
So it's
cool.
like, and I mean that's something that I have been like thinking in different situations, like with again like in relationships, or like even just for myself, when you have like this more chaotic side of your mind and like feelings, versus when you have like more rational approach to things. Is like that tree and the wind, that's in yourself as well, and that's what I meant when I said like it's nature. Is like it's human nature to some extent, like having this polarity of those two things. It might not even be needed to be called like feminine and masculine. You could just call it like chaotic and more like
Order.
less
Chaos. Order.
order. But like it's it's like
Even
that's part of existence for
absolutely.
us.
Even yin yang, right? So like there's all these different ways. But I personally like I do have a preference for masculine and feminine energy because I love the game of love. I actually love the game of love. And
Uh-huh.
another metaphor I have, bro, and that's gonna be more raw, okay? And I'm gonna try to say it in the most like respectful way. So another metaphor I have, and I just got hit with that realization the other day. I was like, oh my God. So what are some of the traits of masculine energy? Direction, solid. You're looking at an erect penis. It's a direction. Okay? Wait a minute. What is feminine energy? Energy of receiving, right? So masculine energy is giving, giving love, penetrating the world. That's what he calls it. Penetrating the world and your woman. And so woman, you look at a vagina. So when man and woman have sex, so the man is penetrating, direction, the woman is receiving, surrendering. That's so interesting. It's so interesting. You can look at it from the biological perspective, you can look at it from psychological, from spiritual, like it all aligns. And yes, we all have them. I think in the beginning of this podcast, it's like I mentioned, like we all have both, and the ideal, for me, most optimal way to live is to embrace both. And I also believe, though, most people, and that's what he says in the book, do have one or the other more, a little bit more naturally. And it just so happens that men, on average, most of them have a bit more of masculine energy. But there's men who have a lot of feminine energy, even if they're heterosexual. So it's like, yeah, it's chaos, of course. It's life. Like there's all of these different, combinations. But if you look at patterns, I think it can be called like masculine and feminine. It's a pretty regular, consistent pattern.
No, and I mean the analogy you shared, and like these ideas are talked about in the book by David Deida, and he like, I mean, what I agree with is that it's a complex book that requires an open mind to listen to new perspectives of looking at things that you might already have thought about, which is like, and I mean even like mentioning topics and words and different things that might make you feel more uncomfortable while reading that, compared to reading a book where a different book that tells you like, oh, you have chaos and you have order. That's very different and more comfortable and known than going to a book that talks about it in very different ways, like with spirituality, with like intimacy and sex, and with these different things. So yeah, I mean it's a great book. I agree that like every man should read it, and especially like every person with more masculine energy tendencies should read. And yeah, then like the last question of the podcast is, so I told you that the show is called Coffee Lounge, and yeah, like for that reason I like to ask like, what is your favorite type of coffee? That can be a way of preparing it, a coffee bean or whatever, and what is your like favorite place or situation during which you like to drink coffee?
Brother, you're gonna hate my answer.
You don't like coffee?
Not only do I not like it, brother, I hate coffee.
For real?
I hate coffee. I don't drink any form of coffee whatsoever, and I don't want to. And when I've tried to, I haven't liked it. I just, bro, it's like, yeah, that's your answer, man. I don't drink coffee. I just don't.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, you're the second person in the podcast who says that. Okay. Well, no, actually, you're the first one who says that you don't like coffee, that you hate coffee. I had another guy who said that he doesn't drink coffee too much because he doesn't like caffeine. But like, yeah, I mean, you're the first person I hear that says it. But I mean, it's okay. Coffee, yeah, is not for everyone. But yeah.
You forgive me. Luke is gonna kill me because he's like,
no, yeah, he's the coffee guy. So
yeah, he's the coffee guy. And I read the caption in your Instagram. What did it say? It said, "People like you drink coffee to wake up. I wake up to drink coffee."
Yeah,
it was a good one. It was funny.
No, yeah.
I'm a tea person, brother. Like
it's okay. Yeah, no, I wrote that one because After School, that YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So like he on his Instagram he had this on his bio quote that said like so woke I sold my bed or something like that. But like I actually had him on my past podcast, so that was cool. Yeah.
Me too. Wow.
Yeah, it was that was fun. But then like I asked him like what did he mean by that, and he was just like no, it was just a joke. And then like when I started this like again like 2 months ago, I was like, okay, I want to include something fun in the bio, and I was like, okay, I like that. And I mean it's just like a fun way of putting it. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just like it's a fun thing that I included there. But yeah. But well, yeah, I appreciate this conversation. Again, it was like very very deep in many ways. We covered a lot of topics, and each of them very deeply. So I appreciate you for coming on the show. And is there anything else you want to add?
Such a pleasure, brother. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. It was a beautiful conversation. I think it was also my longest podcast ever. Like it just like we resonate a lot. Absolutely. And
yeah.
Something else I could add, if someone listening resonated with what I said, you can find me on social media, Dani Banchev. You can find me on School of Porn Academy, porn with an X instead of an O. So Pxrn. YouTube is my main channel. I post on Instagram a little bit. So yeah, you can find me anywhere under Dani Banchev. And thank you so much, Emiliano, for the invitation.
Yeah, it was really cool. So yeah, thanks for coming, man.